Nope, not getting a signal right now. So I was trying to see if I could tune in to a radio broadcast called Radio Free America. We've been getting some limited broadcasting on the AM dial and also on ham radio frequencies. So we know a little bit more now than we did before about the event. If you've watched the other videos in this series, that there was a catastrophic world-changing event. An act of war is what it turns out it was. Just as we thought, just as a lot of us suspected, and a lot of the chatter was indicating, the we'll just call them the Reds. Basically the Russians, the Chinese, and the Iranians have teamed up, and others have teamed up, and they've coordinated attack. They've coordinated an attack on the United States of America. So I'm going to show you a map here in a few minutes, but I wanted to catch you up. It's been a while since I've been able to make a video, and I'll be honest, part of the reason is because there's just nothing but depressing news to report, and I don't want someone to come along and be completely discouraged by this. But I want to tell you right off the bat, we're going to get into the bad news. How did we survive the dark winter? We barely survived the dark winter. We're very limited on our resources that we have left after winter, and after just the constant barrage of people coming over, stealing from us, just making our lives a living hell. It's nothing like, there is no civility anymore. You can't trust anyone, even people within our own community here have turned against others in the community and stolen and just taking advantage of people that were, providing them with some charity and things like that. And once they see that you're able to give food away, then that makes you a target. So the winter was terrible. I mentioned in another video that we did here that there were only like 2 or 3 wood stoves in the whole neighborhood. And that included mine here. And right before the shit hit the fan, I bought one of these barrel stove kits and enough stovepipe that I was able to vent it out of the window of my house and make a little piece of plywood that would go around the pipe to keep the cold out. And I was able to run that and keep my wife, myself, my animals, all that alive through the dark winter. And it was hell. We had no electricity, it never even flickered or anything. We had no radio contact until just about a week ago. So a lot of people didn't make it. Let's just put it that way. We started out with about 47 people in the neighborhood before everything went to hell. And we're down to 4 people. My wife, myself, and another neighbor. The other one that I said was a prepper. He's still here, but him and I were talking yesterday. We're not going to be able to hold this neighborhood. We're going to have to eventually, he's going to go to his bug out location. I'm going to go to my bug out location, and we're basically going to dig in. And unless you're a friend or family of mine, you will be dealt with as a threat. You'll be treated as a threat if we see you anywhere in that zone. Because right here in the suburbs, we're constantly under attack. And I have spent some time out at the bug out location. I'm happy to report one little bit of good news. I was able to recover my truck. You remember I said I had to leave it parked like 5 miles away. I was able to get back and find my truck. Nobody messed with it or anything. And the good news about that is that even though I've got a water leak now and I have to constantly add water to the thing, basically what I did was I had just enough antifreeze to put in it and put it away so that it wouldn't freeze up over the winter. And now that it's summertime, as I run the vehicle, of course it's losing it's not summer, it's springtime right now, but as I run the vehicle in these warmer conditions, it's leaking out, but I'm not as worried about it because now I can put water in it. But I've got about half a tank of gas left, which is more than enough to get me to the bug out location. And I've still got my Suburban, and I've hardly driven it. In fact, I'm going to have to figure out a way to put it on a trickle charger just so that I'll be able to drive it. But our plan is we're going to have to load everything we can that we have left, which is not much, into the Suburban and my black truck and probably a trailer, because I've got to take a chicken coop. I've still got my chickens, even though one of the things that has been a dead giveaway for us that we've really really had a hard time with is our rooster. He crows all the time, and that's a dead giveaway. If somebody hears a rooster crow from a half a mile away, then they're going to come find that person that has chickens. So we know we're going to have to deal with that. We're going to have to put those chickens up way out in the woods somewhere on our property, and also close enough where we can monitor them. But we're going to need to, you know, use the trees in the forest to hide those chickens crowing. And I don't know anything else I could do. I've actually thought about, you know, as bad as it sounds, I've thought about trying to do some field surgery on him and remove those vocal cords or whatever it is that I'd have to do to keep him from doing that, because it's a dead giveaway. It's a security problem. So back to the reason I didn't want to make this video is that again, there's 4 people left in our neighborhood here, and we're limited on supplies, although we have had some contact, and we think that things are going to be okay in the long run. But right now we have to get there, and we're still under constant attack. This is an invasion from a foreign army, and it's a coordinated effort amongst multiple countries, and this is probably been planned all along. A lot of people are saying this is part of the Great Reset, Build Back Better, New World Order agenda, and that really totally makes sense to me from my studies that I've seen on this stuff. So anyways, we're under siege, and I'm going to show you a picture of this map here in a moment that shows you kind of where the areas that are being heavily fought over right now are. And there's a couple of little glimmers of hope where some people have set up like new America governments where they're going to try to reestablish the United States, or at least what's left of it, the remnant. And there is some limited military activity. A remnant of the U.S. military still exists. So especially in these more free areas where they were able to thwart off the attacks, or some of them just never were attacked. This seems to be the majority of the attack came from the northern and the southern border. Apparently they were mounting up troops up in Canada, and Klaus Schwab and all these globalists knew all about it, but they didn't tell us. Even Biden knew about it, they said. But they were mounting up all these troops doing what they called training exercises. Well, the training exercise turned out to be a real event, and many of the northern states suffered lots of casualties and things. Some of them put up a hell of a fight and were able to keep their territory, but others lost their territory and are now occupied by the Red Army. So things are not looking good for the good old USA. And just as a lot of us suspected along the way, as soon as the beast was injured, that's when they came in, and they hit us while we were down, while we were wounded. And we all saw how things went in that last chaotic presidential election. So I mean, this was kind of inevitable, and a lot of people tried to warn folks about it, and even myself, even though I warn people, I wish now, of course, everything's better in hindsight, but I wish that I'd have been able to, stock up on certain things that we're completely out of now, that we just never really thought about until the system collapsed. So, but let me get into this. I'm kind of avoiding it because it's a terrible story. Over the winter, like I said, we had a wood stove, so we invited some people in because we couldn't stand to see people with children freezing to death. We couldn't stand to see small kids freezing to death. So we brought them in to our home, and we all took turns, and at first it worked out pretty well. Nobody really minded pitching in and doing their part and chopping wood and cleaning the wood stove and maintaining the wood stove, dealing with the water situation that we have here. We're the last house in the neighborhood that has water, and that's only because I hooked up my gutter on my metal building out there. I've got a 30 by 30 metal building, and one side of it I have a 275 gallon rain catch that I put in, and that's the only water we have left. I don't have the gasoline to run the generator, and therefore I can't run the well. I can't charge anything with the generator. I do still have the solar panels and the battery, and thank goodness that's still holding out for me, and we've been able to charge devices like this camera and other things like that, smaller devices, portable lights, things like that, weapons lights, things like that are going to need to be charged. So we were able to do that stuff, but we haven't had like any cold food in quite a long time. I can't even remember when the last time. It was close. After the beginning of the whole thing went down, we lost our freezer and our refrigerator because we just couldn't keep the generator running. And especially at the point when the sound of the generator suddenly made you a target, because, over time, we heard less and less generators running until there were only a few running. And then eventually none running, and you never hear a generator. It's always quiet. You never hear cars. You never hear anything anymore because most people are completely out of gas. And I told you a while back about just my little trip out and how that failed mission went, and I got separated from my group, all that stuff, right? Well, way back then was one of the last times we left the neighborhood because it got so dangerous that we couldn't even leave. So we've only had the items that are available to us here in the neighborhood. Now, we've lost people along the way, and that's what I want to talk about. How did we lose 42, 43 people along the way? Well, a lot of them froze to death over the winter. People that refused to take help. A lot of people just, I think a lot of people have gotten into a mentality here lately, and I get it, everything's bad, but they've kind of given up on life because they don't think that it's worth living, that it's worth preserving. And in fact, I don't know, 15, 20 people have ended their own lives. Let's just leave it at that. And it's not pretty. Now, the only, I guess, good side of that is that once there's less people, obviously the food will go farther, so there is that benefit, and we were able to make it through the winter. But the problem is that, these people were also helping us with, a lot of them were our friends and just neighbors and people that we wanted to see make it. So as you see people around you falling like dominoes, it's pretty demoralizing. It's hard to keep your spirits up. And, again, lots of suicides, lots of people just died of sickness. They just got sick from being malnourished, and we don't really know what happened because we don't have a doctor in our group. So our group is breaking down. Just as I said in one of the earlier videos, it was a kind of a loose-knit group. Well, the problem is there were only like 3 or 4 preppers in the whole neighborhood that were serious preppers. Everyone else was basically leeching off of those people, and including me. And our food supply went way faster. Even though we had for my wife and myself, we had at least 3 or 4 years worth of food. But it's gone virtually in one winter. And it's because we were, charitable. We couldn't stand to see, especially young kids and, mothers and single mothers. And I told you about that one instance where I was going to have to take care of, man, so many people have died now. I can't even remember that guy's name. That's how bad things are. Where the collapse of everything has happened. And there aren't very many bright spots. But I want to tell you about one thing that is very good news if it materializes and turns into what we hope it's going to be. So about a week ago, we started getting some communications coming through that were from what was left, the remnant of the United States government. And as it turns out, all hope is not lost. There are some places that if you can get to these places and make it there, basically that's the challenge. If you can make it to these places, then there's a chance, you'll be able to get food and water and supplies and things like that. Some of them are better than others. We're going to talk about that right now. I'm going to show you this map that I was able to get a hold of this map. You can see all of the red there. That's all occupied by the Reds. So, not good. Vast chunks of the United States of America have been lost to the communist army, basically. And it's a tragedy. It's terrible. I think about all the life that has just been lost. And, a lot of people tried to join in. A lot of these people that supported communist ideology and things like that, they tried to join in with the Red Army. And, of course, the Red Army played along. Or these are the rumors of war anyways. The Red Army supposedly played along. Oh, yeah, you can come join. You're the ones that helped us get in here. And then they took them out behind the building and executed them with a firing squad. So those people that thought that they were going to be, you know, protected because they had helped to bring this on, the destruction of America, they were actually the ones that were executed first. And the logic there is that, like the Russians and the Chinese, they looked at those people as traitors to their own country. And they're like, why would we let traitors come in to our side that would just eventually turn on us? It was actually, from that perspective, it was a smart move on their part, in my opinion. But I still, you know, I still feel sorry for those people in our country that fell for all the communism and the communist lies and the propaganda along the way. But yeah, let me get the map back up here and we'll show you. Sorry, I can't do as good of an edit as I used to, and I apologize about the lighting, but we're on limited resources here. So we've got a couple of different zones here. You see this gray zone right in the middle? That's still under heavy fire, heavy attack all the time from all sides. And that's where we are. We're located in this gray zone right here. And it's still pretty rough. It's basically without rule of law. There's no law around, so it's been very tough. You've got this green zone down here. This zone here is bringing me the most hope and optimism. They've got a new president that runs this section of the United States now. His name is DeSantis. I knew a little bit about him as the governor of Florida before the shit hit the fan. When I heard that DeSantis had become the president of this green region, and I don't know why they did it green, but that gave me some hope, because I know that he's an old school conservative, and hopefully he'll be able to do some things to get the unification of this section here back together. And there's a lot of talk about this gray zone joining up. And right now, this is kind of no man's land in here. I mean, it's not really controlled by anybody. There have been some factions that have tried to pop up, but quickly they were eliminated by outside groups. Basically, everybody is fighting for control and power. So a lot of people, it's tough, man. You don't want to be one of the movers and shakers in this gray zone here, which is where we are. And there's just been a ton of death. And I can only imagine, based on what I've seen here in my neighborhood, like 90% of the people are gone, dead, moved on to something else. We don't know what happened to them, but the majority of them, vast majority of them, are dead, either from disease, hunger, freezing to death, dying of thirst, or, you know, gunshots, things like that, suicides, other things. So the death rate is just out of control. I would say 90% of the people are gone, at least in this gray zone. I can't speak for all these red areas. You know, there is talk that in the red areas, the casualty numbers are much, much higher than 90%. So if you're in one of those red areas that's controlled by the Red Army, I really feel sorry for you. I hope you can get out of there, and maybe this map will help you to get to a better area in your, you know, maybe you can get over to the gray zone. That might, even though it's pretty rough in the gray zone, it's still better than being in occupied red zone. So, and then there's this other area up here that's kind of a tannish color. Rumor has it that Governor Kristi Noem has basically declared herself, or maybe they had a vote of some kind. I don't know, because, you know, we don't really get a lot of talk about that kind of stuff. But we do know that Kristi Noem is in control of this region up here. And she was pretty well known to be you know, a conservative type minded person and constitutional type person, much like DeSantis. So that gives me some hope that all is not lost. And again, there are remnants of the military. And I don't know if they've reformed the military or if these are just leftover remnants that weren't taken out in the first attack. And obviously there was a EMP attack. We know that now. It was a coordinated effort. The people at the World Economic Forum had done a little test run on what they called Cyber Polygon. So what we didn't know was that they were going to do a pincer type move on us. And that basically meant that they were using their new hypersonic, supersonic EMP missile, and they launched several of those right over the United States of America, which is what took the power grid down. But then also there were other cyber attacks that essentially wiped out the rest of the world's internet capabilities. And also there was some talk about some giant fiber optic cables that run underneath the ocean from the United States to Europe. And apparently the Russians or the Chinese or maybe the Iranians, probably the Russians, severed that line by shooting one of their I can't remember the name of the torpedo, but they've got these torpedoes that are nuclear, that are like pretty badass, 100 megatons or something like that, mega blast. So that's not going to be reconnected anytime soon. They made sure of that. So there was also another, they used one of these missiles along the coast out here, right outside of New York, Washington D.C., the northeastern corridor. They used one of these tsunami creating nuclear blasts. So they created a tsunami by detonating a nuclear blast under the water out offshore, and that hit a lot of the people with a radioactive tidal wave. So people that made it through that, maybe they were far enough inland that they were able to run. They're probably still alive, but if you got any of that radioactive water or anything on you, that is a death sentence. So a lot of really bad news, and I'm sorry to have to report this, but there is good news happening, that what's left of free America is reforming, and reforming governments, and reforming the military. It may be too little too late. It may all be in vain, but we are going to fight for the Constitution of the United States of America. That message has been made clear, coming out of Kristi Noem's region and coming out of DeSantis's region. Rick DeSantis, or Ron DeSantis, I can't remember his name, but the governor of Florida. He's now in charge of that portion of the United States, and we hope that we can get this gray zone dealt with before the Red Army is able to take full control of it. So again, we're running out of resources here. We're running out of time. Basically, we're just we don't have much. But the good news is my wife and I are ready with our seeds and with everything we need to basically start a garden once we get over to our bug out location. And so we're going to be relying very heavily on that this year. We've still got canning supplies and things like that left over, so we're going to be able to can up those things, and hopefully we'll be able to produce enough that we'll be able to make it through the next dark winter, unless some miracle happens and things come back online, which I'm not waiting for. So the moral of the story that I've taken away from this more than anything else is that the people that were set up to thrive and to be self-reliant were the ones that have been damaged the least by this. Not to say that they haven't had any problems, because they have, just fighting off people that want to take their stuff. But if you are already set up for this, you're much better off than somebody that has nothing. Because, I mean, it's just, frankly, let's put it this way. We've had to turn away several people over the winter because we were just barely making it ourselves. And these people would come up with nothing. And, it pulls on your heartstrings. It's hard because you want to help everybody. But, the reality is that if we did that, we would not have made it through the winter. So we had to turn away countless people. Sometimes they had kids, and that made it even harder. And many of the people, it caused lots of conflicts within our group here, because many people wanted to bring them in, of course, and do the humanitarian thing. But again, starving yourself to death is not the answer, or how to be a humanitarian. So, I mean, it's really hard. And I don't think anybody thought about this stuff before the shit hit the fan. So anyways, I hope I've given you some things to think about. If you're seeing this video, again, I'm not trying to depress you. I know this is a depressing topic. I hope you're doing better than us. I hope your group has done better than us psychologically and, nutritionally and everything, and health-wise and all that. I hope you're doing a lot better than us. But if you find this video, remember this map, and I'm going to leave a copy here. I've still got a way to run my printer, so I'm going to leave a copy here before we leave. That way, if anyone comes along and they see this, they'll know, and I'll write a note what station it is. 800 to 1400 on the dial, on the AM dial. If you don't have a ham radio, look around at 800 to 1400 on the AM dial. And that's where I have found and been able to tune in to Radio Free America. And sometimes they might have some cryptic messages in there, like the chair is against the wall, or John has a long mustache. But besides the cryptic messages that you're going to hear on Radio Free America, you'll get a lot of really great information and updates of what's really going on in this country. God bless you. God bless the United States of America for as long as it lasts.